Well, it's you know, it was an interesting year because what a lot of people didn't know is we started off really as a race-to-race deal. We went out and put the car right at the top for all 3 days of testing. Went into Daytona, had a real strong Daytona, finished third, and Dean sort of looked at me and he said, well, you know, in order for us to keep doing this, he says, we've got to win. We've got to be on the podium or we can't do this. And that was the way it was pretty much every single race. So there was a lot of pressure that Dean and Larry were feeling from Rehagen Racing about, you know, continuing with our program because we really only had enough sponsorship for one race. The most thrilling moment where I thought maybe we're going to make the whole year and actually do the whole year was Laguna Seca, when we dominated there. We had a great car. Laguna Seca is one of my favorite tracks. To be able to win there in KONI and in the Mustang, and realizing that, hey, maybe this will bring enough resources back to the team that we can keep this going. So that was probably the biggest sort of moment, I think, for me. The worst moments were calling Dean after the race when he's back in his shop and trying to find out if we were actually going to the next race. Those were sort of the dreadful sort of phone calls, like, you know, if he says no, how can we make this, you know, figure it out? But we didn't have a lot of bad moments in the series. I mean, the car, we were so consistent with our performance that it was a good, solid year. There's external pressures. I have to do well in every race or else I'm not going to be here, you know, maybe next race or next year. And then certainly I have a pretty deep drive to compete and to want to win. So this year seemed like every other year in some ways. You know, I was sort of hoping at the beginning, well, maybe we'll get something, and it's just, we know we've got the budget, we can do everything we want to do. But, you know, I've always enjoyed the pressure of having to take what you have and maximize it, and through strategy, through thinking, through driving aggressively, knowing when to back off, but still drive aggressively so you can still win and perform well. So that's just been my career, basically. I'd like it a little easier sometimes, but you know, that's the way it is. I first met Dean actually golfing before the Daytona 24-hour one year, a number of years ago, and I met him and I was playing with him, and he was one of the engineers that was helping design the suspension and that for the new Mustang. And I said, you know, Dean, you got the best job in the world, you know. And so we had a good game of golf, and then he decided to get into racing with Larry Rehagen, and they formed a team. And I did a one-off race with a friend of mine that wanted to rent a ride, and they rented from Dean, and we went into Mont-Tremblant. It was the first race I ever did on Dean's team, and we podiumed. For some reason, Dean and I and his team, we just have connected really well, and our number of podium finishes have been phenomenal. I'm constantly trying to do better as a driver and trying to figure out ways to be better, and that will never stop. But I think where I'm learning and getting better at is being able to work with the teams and figuring out, you know, like this year, like we were going through a championship run, and a number of the guys, you know, hadn't been through that, and so there's ways that you try and work with the team and keep everyone focused and sometimes it's just a couple of words, and other times it's more big strategy stuff and big picture stuff. So I think that's where I've really learned the most is, you know, how to work with the team and how to do that to get to that, you know, get to that goal. And I think that I learned quite a bit about that this year.